Hello and welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. We are all going to die, but when will you die? That's a question that plagues many, many people, and so many people are consumed by worries about their own mortality. Let me spoil the ending. We're all going to die. Live while you can. Amen. And that's today's episode. Actually, I'm very excited to speak with the founder of the Death Clock and Most Days, which is kind of a media company who brings you apps and cool things that will hopefully make your life better. His name is Brent Franson, and he is using the power of AI to calculate when you're going to die using the Death Clock app. Brent, welcome to Kennedy Saves the World.
Kennedy, thank you for having me. I hate to be the bearer of bad news as well. We're all going to die. It's just a question of when.
And that's absolutely right. And, you know, many of us, when you have been confronted with loss, one of the things you realize is, I wish I had spent less time worrying about when my partner or my parent or my pet was going to die. I wish I had just spent more time enjoying the time that we have. Okay, first of all, let's start before how can the death clock help you not worry so much. When did you come up with the idea for it?
So we've had the idea for a long time. So we're a venture-backed tech company, and we have an app called Most Days that's a mental health app. And one of the things when you're building apps is you need to get information, you need to understand the user of the app in order to give them a good experience. And we always thought, we should be predicting death dates because we can learn a lot about habits and lifestyle, and that could be an interesting way for people to provide information and to make it fun, basically. But it just didn't work for Most Days. And then we spent a lot more time thinking about longevity, and we said this should be a standalone app. And so we created Death Clock, and here we are today. It's 25 questions, and we predict the date of your death based on those questions.
So my predicted death date is November 13th, 2068, when I will be 96 years old.
How do you feel about that?
It's pretty solid. My grandmother lived to be 100. Other grandmother lived to be 90, and that's just because she broke her hip. She easily could have lived to 95. I do all the things you're supposed to do. Like, I've realized in my 50s that I am a rule follower. So if there's something that I can do to make my life better, I listen to my doctors. I go for cancer screenings. I drink lots of water. I lift weights. I do cardio. I sleep as much as I possibly can. I meditate. I journal. I laugh. I have good friendships. I love my boyfriend. I love my children. I love my dog. It's like, so whatever I'm supposed to do, like, I try and surround myself with good people who help mitigate whatever stress you can't control.
And so before using Death Clock, did you know, not the date specifically, but did you know that you're likely to end up in your mid 90s, 96? Was that a number that you knew?
Yeah, I felt pretty good about that based on some of my genetic factors and lifestyle choices. That seemed about right. But I also think with technology and cancer screening and, even things like oncology, there's so much more targeted now. And if you find out bad things sooner, you're much more likely to overcome it if you can. I'm a big believer in that kind of technology, but I'm also a big believer in balance in your life. And I also realize that you have to work very hard at that is a practice that you constantly have to go back to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it reminds me, our healthcare system is pretty bad. And the main reason that it's bad is because it focuses on being reactive. So once we're sick, once something's wrong with us, then our healthcare system is there to help us. But it is really terrible at helping us prevent getting disease in the first place. And so we're all on our own to eat well, to sleep well, to exercise, to get the cancer screenings. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do with Death Clock, is to help people be proactive in managing their health so you can, find that cancer early, and then the consequences of it might not be as severe. And
Yeah. Or you find out if you have coronary artery disease before you have a widowmaker heart attack. And I know a couple of guys in their 40s who survived those, and they both happened to be incredible athletes, and they both had these massive heart attacks while cycling, and they both lived. My baby daddy's dad didn't survive sudden cardiac death. And, he obviously didn't have access to integrative medicine, which is becoming much more popular now. And it's not just trendy. This is the kind of thing. And it's not necessarily having to go to a concierge doctor, but there are things like I watch Instagram videos about things like mobility and, and balancing your meridians and things like that. And if you want to find positive information and little things you can do in your life to make incremental changes, like the information is there for you. So if you want to seek it out, it has never been easier to find it. But that kind of brings me back to the death clock, because at first it sounds very negative and terrifying, because the last thing you want to hear when you go to a psychic, like you want to go to a psychic and hear, oh my God, you're about to come into so much money and you're amazing and your luck is about to shift and you're going to have the best part of your life starting now. What you don't want to hear is, here's the day you're going to die. And so I thought that would be creepy about death clock. But then I realized, so if you have all of these factors that you put in right now, but you change the ones in the questionnaire that are within your control about things like how much you sleep, how much water do you drink, do you eat lots of fruits and veggies? Those are things you can change. So I'm assuming that if you make lifestyle choices, the number on the death clock will change over time. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So we're predicting the date of your death and we're predicting life expectancy, but we're also telling you how much longer you can live if you change your habits. And then the app itself is really meant to help you change those things, to remind you to go get the cancer screenings, to tell you about supplements to consider, to talk to you about to remind you and give you a list of things.
What's
that
a
you
good
should talk to your
supplement?
doctor about.
What's something that you absolutely take that people should be taking? I love
Everybody
hearing
should
about
be
people's
taking-
supplements.
I mean, the basics are the best. The omega-3, so fish oil, basically. Vitamin D would be number 2. Magnesium is a big one. I've always struggled to sleep, and magnesium is very helpful there.
That's
For
like,
people-
that's the sleepy girl cocktail.
Yeah, exactly. My sister rubs it on her feet before she goes to bed, which that's not
I
what
didn't
I do.
realize your sister was a gypsy.
But yeah, we're trying to help you. We're trying to help people live longer. What's crazy in longevity is there's 2 groups of people. There are a group of people who are trying, who I would call the incremental decade people. They're trying to help people get one more decade of high quality life. Then there's a whole group of people who are like, I'm going to do a bunch of crazy things. There's going to be a magic pill and we're all going to live to 150 or 200. I would put us in the incremental decade camp, not because I don't believe that maybe someday we'll be able to live to 150, but the safe bet is the incremental decade, which is do the right thing, sleep, diet, and exercise, get screened for cancer. On the heart disease thing, go get a CT scan. It's $150, $200, not covered by insurance, but it's worth it. It's gonna look at the calcium buildup in your heart and give you a risk for, get ahead of heart attacks, basically, for a bunch of people. But you want to be doing those things, even if there does end up being some magic pill that helps us get to 150. Taking care of ourselves proactively is going to matter either way. And the last thing I'll say about these 2 groups of people is the incremental decade people, they look a lot better than the live to 150 people. They're healthier, they're better looking. These live to 150 people.
So it's like J-Lo versus Keith Richards.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go anywhere. More Kennedy Saves the World right after this.
I tend to agree with you, because it's not as sexy and it's not as easy. But if you make those changes over time and try and create some consistency, then when there is the magic pill, you'll be in better shape to receive the benefits of it. It's like if you keep your nice white rug clean and you get the Bissell little green machine and you clean out the stains and try and keep it from getting too dirty in the first place, your home's going to have a higher resale value versus the people who go to flea markets and find like rugs covered with mold, and then they have to spend 5 hours deep cleaning them and going through a series of processes. And they're like, see, it's just as good. It's like, no, it's really not good because, like deep inside, there's still mold and mites and it's kind of gross.
I totally agree. And I think sometimes when you spend a lot of time talking to people about length of life, you get this argument that I don't really care about length of life. I just want a high quality life. And I think the two go hand in hand. So for me, the healthier I am, the happier I am. Like, talk to me on a day when I've slept well and I've exercised and I'm eating things that are good for me. I'm going to be a better father, a better husband. I'm going to be better at my job. I'm going to be in a better mood than, I don't know, the day after I drank a lot the night before and didn't sleep well and am dragging myself through the day. And so these things are not mutually exclusive. The goal is we want to have a long health span, which is the amount of time during our lives that we're healthy. But a lot of times when you're doing the things that you need to do to be healthy, you're happier anyways. And so it's going to serve you today in terms of the quality of your life. And then it'll probably serve you later on in terms of getting more time at the end of your life.
Yeah. And also, it's really interesting. I talk to people whenever I talk about running, like, oh, running is the worst. Running is the worst thing for you. And I think about, people you see at a theme park and they're in like the Wally scooters and they've got oxygen. And it's like, you're telling me that running is so bad for me, but being sedentary is somehow better? Like, that's not a quality of life. I would rather run because chances are if I'm running and I do get tight and I do strain a muscle, then I'm probably going to listen to my body and, get into a stretching program and maybe do some gentle yoga to try and rehab myself. And that will be better for me in the long term than just being like, I know a guy who ran and he got a new knee. Therefore, running is bad for you and I'll never do it. I weigh 600 pounds.
Well, and the cruel reality of exercise is there's never a run that you regret. I'm a runner as well. It's just the first 10 minutes of any exercise is not
exercise.
Fun.
It doesn't matter. And by the way, that's such a good point because it doesn't matter what level you're at. Like if you're an elite athlete, you still, like, the first 10 minutes of anything, especially first thing in the morning, they suck. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, my joints are all lubed. Now I feel good. Let's go break some records, Michael Phelps.
Yeah, and there's a high associated with it. And the physiology is very simple. You enter a workout in an anaerobic state, and then you spend 10 minutes transitioning into an aerobic state. I mean, we are built to do this, but everybody gets so caught up on what that first 10 minutes is like, and you're never going to regret an exercise. So the key is about tricking yourself into getting through that first 10 minutes. You know what? I can turn around after 10 minutes if I hate this run. You're very rarely going to turn around, but there's a whole bunch of runs you don't go on because you don't feel like it. And what you don't feel like doing is getting into the first 10 minutes, and you're assuming that first 10 minutes is how the whole run's going to be like, or whatever the exercise is. And that's just not the case.
It's really funny. We do forget how good we feel at the end. And not just because it's over, but it's like, and it's like a complete sense. It's like a vertically integrated sense of well-being. And we always forget that. I wish that would be easier to remember. Why is it easier for some people to do difficult things than it is for others?
Well, it's about habit. So it's about people who have kind of broken through the threshold where something turns into a habit and you're just doing it automatically. But basically, almost all of our health problems boil down to this disconnect between the when you do something and the benefit of it. So think about something like drinking. Drinking gives you a really immediate benefit. It feels good. You drink that first beer, that first glass of wine, and you feel great. But then later on that evening or the next day, you don't feel good. Not feeling good later on that evening or the next day is irrelevant for the part of our brain that's processing whether or not we want to do something. It's not connecting the dots between the two. The same thing with eating all the ice cream. You could go through this in 100 different ways. And so you've got to be really cognizant of that disconnect between all your brain cares about is the immediate benefit or penalty. So we don't like to exercise because the immediate thing we start exercising is that it's unpleasant. We do like to have that alcohol, and we forget about all the hangovers because the only thing our brain cares about is what does it feel like immediately when we take down the drink. And you can look at almost all of our health issues come down to this disconnect. And so we want to be really cognizant of it.
I'm glad you brought that up, Brent, because I have at a few times in my life combine those two, and I have consumed alcohol, and then I have exercised after that, and I have to tell you, it's not that bad. It's actually kind of fun.
Jam them together.
I would not tell people to go bicycling. I would not tell them to swim in open water, but I have done more than one run while mildly inebriated. You can't be drunk. You cannot be drunk. I will tell you this, the other thing, if you wake up and you're still inebriated but not yet hungover, go work out immediately and you will get the benefit of both worlds. And
no better cure for a hangover than exercise or sauna, or ideally the combination of the two.
Yes, work out in the sauna. Take your Peloton into the sauna. Even if you're at Equinox, just take it right in there and just start pedaling. And you will thank me at some point.
It's hard to do though. There's this I'm going to date myself a little bit. There's this Seinfeld line where basically the episode is nighttime Jerry doesn't care about morning Jerry. Mm-hmm. So like he's out late partying and staying up late, and he's like, that'll be morning Jerry's problem. Nighttime Jerry doesn't have to deal with that. And we do that to ourselves constantly, particularly with
but that is one of the things that you learn with age is at some point it's not really worth it. Not like it used to be, because you also can't shake it off like you can in your 20s and 30s. And then when you get into your 40s and 50s, it's like, maybe I do just want to go to bed at 9. Like that sounds very luxurious. But 20-year-old, you would be like, what are you, crazy? We still have 6 hours of nighttime to go. We're not going to squander that. But
yeah, the 4-day hangover is not that great.
No. I mean, there are a couple things that learn you real quick about that. One is age. The other is children. Because
yes.
It is almost impossible to parent while hungover.
Oh, I'm a terrible parent hungover. So I have 3 kids. I've got an 8-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Oh, you're in it.
And if I'm not in bed by 9, and if I don't work out, basically at 5:30, I have to work out before the kids wake up. I'm just not as good of a parent. I do not have the tolerance for the toddler tantrums in the same way that I do if I've slept. And so it's forced. It's definitely changed my relationship with a few late night drinks.
Yeah, absolutely right. But and then you realize that the trade-offs are, I imagine for most people, yes, you still will have cocktails. They will be less frequent, and you will replace that buzz with a runner's high because you have no choice.
Well, also there's another saying I like, which is everything in moderation, including moderation. And so we don't want to strive for these just pure perfect lives. A, we're going to fail, and B, it's just not any fun. And so you've got to let yourself off the hook every once in a while.
Yes.
A nice healthy dose of self-compassion.
And cake. I mean, mine is gluten-free because I have celiac, but I love cake. Do I eat it every day? I do not. But when I eat it, do I love it? I absolutely do. And I take my time and I savor it. And it is delicious. And so go download the Death Clock, answer all the questions. Don't be afraid, because the number, it can change. If you change the factors in your life, then the outcome will change. But, Brent, at some point, I have a feeling in 500 years, when we're all living to 1,000, we will interface again, telepathically, perhaps, and we will look back on this conversation and we will say to ourselves, see, we were worried about that. We really should have been worried about the nuclear alien probes we had coming.
Thanks for having me, Kennedy.
Brent, it's great to talk to you. I hope people go get the app, and I hope they feel fantastic most days. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. I'm Kennedy.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app. Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.